India was 3.1 times richer than China in 1970. What happened? 1970, China had just come out of the Great Leap Forward. They had just come out of the Cultural Revolution. They had just come out of all the policies enacted by Mao Zedong that damaged the country. And just before that, they had no respite, they had no break. Before that was the Japanese situation. Before that was a civil war that killed millions. Before that were revolutions. So you could see China since the year 1900 for 60 years has continuously been going through hell. In fact, 1970 was the year and was around that time that they climbed out of hell finally. Hell is an appropriate word that I used because the scale which the Chinese people had to endure, what the Chinese economy had to endure, and what the nation of China itself as a whole had to endure is unimaginable. And it is nothing compared to what India has gone through at all. In the 1960s, when millions were dying in the Great Leap Forward, when millions of farmers were ripped out of their farms and forced to work in industrialization, which failed, it devastated the economy, it devastated the social fabric, and around 60 million people died. I want you to visualize what 60 million people died due to Mao's policies. 60 million is just a little short of the entire population of Karnataka. 60 million is a huge number. It is the largest recorded man-made death in human history due to Mao Zedong's policies. Then if we go back before that, was the Civil War. Chinese Civil War lasted more than a decade between the nationalists and the communists. Guerrilla warfare, mass murders, use of poison gas, airplanes, civil war, something India has never experienced. And before that was the invasion of Japan. Japan invaded that country, enslaved millions of Chinese. Japan killed and raped millions, devastated them, destroyed villages, burned them down, used biological weapons too, something India has never experienced. And before that were the continuous revolutions, governments toppling each other, warlords coming here and there. India has never experienced that. So 60 years, Chinese had to go through such horrible crimes that no other country has ever gone through in such a short period of time. The intensity of crimes and the abuse that the Chinese have suffered, the country of China as a whole have suffered, would make it seem likely that right now China would not be better than any African nation because of what they have been through. In the 60s, while millions were dying, the educated were being purged, all the education at schools, universities were shut down during the Cultural Revolution. Millions were dying in the Great Leap Forward. Millions starved in the multiple famines. What was happening in India? Well, what was happening in India was the exact reverse opposite. India was accepted globally worldwide. India had a very powerful moral authority and therefore actual political power, unlike today, which all the Vishwaguru talk is just literally just talk. They had real political power and moral power despite being a poor country, despite being an upgraded country. They had enough political power to pressurize Western countries to leave whatever African colonies were there. In fact, the decolonization of Africa, India played a huge part in that. Now, anyone imagine India had so much global power in 2025? Clearly, no one is that delusional and no one is that self deluded or so silly and so stupid to believe that India has that much political power as it has back then in the 60s. The 60s was great reforms were occurring in India. You had the Green Revolution, you had the White Revolution, and you had many policies meant to develop this country under Lal Bahadur Shastri Ji. He was a very great man who left us too unfortunately early. So you could see while India was going through heaven, China was going through hell in the 60s. Yet now in 2025, to call India and China equal is a joke. Even the most deluded Indian, the most brainwashed Indian who believes in all these political parties, I will make India strong again. Believe in the false prophets that I have made India Vishwaguru, I have made India superpower. They themselves will do deep down in their heart because they themselves cannot be that deluded to know that India is not equal to China at all. What happened? Why did that happen? How could a country with 60 million people died just 60, little more than 60 years ago, overcome us? In 1970, the per GDP capita, India was richer than China 3.1 times. I want you to remember 3.1 times India was richer than just 55 years ago. And now what is it? Horrible. We have unemployment, we have fuel prices going up, we have jobs not being created enough, and worst of all, we are in a self delusion. We have been mass deluded into believing that India has become better after 2014. Or in fact, India has in fact become better since 1947, but no, all the growth that has happened since 1947 is not due to the government, but despite the government. All the growth we have seen in this country is because of the people's effort. Different groups coming together and decide to make the country a better place, despite the government's stifling of it. China, unlike India, has chosen very different policies. They have decided to protect their people and put their people first. While today, China is trying to choke India strategically by making allies in the Southeast Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, basically making a chain around India. What is happening in India? Here we are hearing that we are the Vishwaguru, we are the Vishwaguru. Yet every day Indians are being the most abused on social media. Is this what Vishwaguru is? No, this is mass delusion. We must wake out of this mass delusion. We must realize that those in power do not hold our interests as their interests because they have different interests and I have different interests. Me and you are not the same as those in power. Me and you are not the same as the political animal. Me and you are not the same as the political insect. Their goal is to simply get the seat and to make as much money. Our goal is to survive and to feed our families. There is a big difference in that. Their goal is to transfer as much of your money earned from your taxes into their Swiss bank accounts. Our goal is to save as much money to feed our child. Those in power have never been in interest of us, be it whatever the party, because the political animal, the political insect, is one and the same. Like a chameleon, it changes color based on the party, but it is one and the same. They always have a backup. They have a safety net. They have hundreds of crores behind them. But you and I have less than 20,000 rupees in our accounts or with us. And yet, to know that China, that country was poorer than us, was going through worse than us, could overtake us and have much better life for each of its citizens. That was the real knife in the heart for us. Because it proved to us that what we are going through is not normal. What we're going through is not what every country goes through. What we're going through is happening only to us. If China could get out of that hellhole, why can't we get out of that hellhole? Why do we have to suffer? Why do we have to endure? If China could do it, why couldn't we do it? Look at all the schemes that's happened. Swachh Bharat, demonetize it, make it India. All that has failed. All that has failed because this political animal, the political insect, does not wish in their interest to make us educated, to make us stronger, to make us more capable of taking care of ourselves and living a better life. Because if we did these things, then we would have no need for them. Their scams, their con game will no longer work, and they no longer will win the corrupt elections. That is why they want to keep us down. They promise us great change every election, every party. But what the only change is happening is that they are only becoming richer and richer while we are becoming poorer and poorer. Like China. China is now a world is easily one of the most important countries in the world because if you look at anything you use, it's made in China. Probably this mic which I'm wearing, it's made in China. This phone stand that I'm using is made in China. The phone cover in which your phone is being held in which your hand is holding, is also probably made in China. Any plastic item you see is made in China. That wall clock in your house, that's probably made in China. And now we like to mock Chinese for saying make in China is seen as cheap quality. Yes, yes, that's what we like to do. We like to insult and mock them down. But you remember that yet, even though it may be cheap quality, you bought it. Why couldn't there be a made in India alternative? Because there wasn't. And all that money earned from India, earned from the ground and soil of Bharat, is gone all the way to China. And that's used to finance China. Why couldn't our own industries produce whatever we need? Why couldn't an Indian company produce all the things we need? Why is China so important that without China, the world economy might collapse? Remember, this was the same country that in 1970 was starving, was three times less, was three times poorer than us. It's 55 years ago, and now they're so important that they have the power to challenge USA while we don't have any power at all. China was an isolated country in the 60s. No country had any relationships with them. Isolated and blocked. India, in contrast, had one of the strongest moral authority and political power through our ahimsa and through our non-violent struggle which we earned. And now where is that power? All squandered. Where is the Vishwaguru? Where was the international support during the Pahalgam attack? It was not there. Where is the international support to the increasing racism against Indians worldwide? It's not there. So what is the Vishwaguru doing? Or is it really a Vishwaguru? Thing is, the political animal, the false prophet, has tried to mask this problem. But we know the truth. Truth is, we, the common people, every day, are the ones that bear the brunt of this suffering. We are being fooled, tricked, scammed, conned, while they fill their bank accounts more and more. We fail to recognize that the entire system, whichever the party, their interest has never been the same as ours. And there is more than 80 years of proof to solidify that fact. China got out of it. Hello. We couldn't get out of it. This is the problem that our country faces. We have been fooled in the scale of millions, might be the greatest con game and the greatest scam that has ever happened in history. To make us believe that what we are going through is normal, to not raise our expectations higher while every other country is going up and up and up. I want you to remember the example of China whenever someone says that it's impossible to change the system, it's impossible to develop, it's impossible to grow. I want you to remember that in just one generation, that China, a broke country with no industrialization, suffered civil war, suffered famine, suffered invasion by foreign countries, suffered revolutions, suffered all these failed policies that killed 60 million people, which India has not even had 1% of in the last 80 years. None of this hell has happened to it. Yet in just one generation, China has overtaken us. What has all this generation of politicians doing from 1940 till 2020? Absolutely nothing. So this is what I'm warning you about. I'm warning you about the mass delusion, and I'm more importantly giving out hope, giving out the ability to believe that it is change is possible. That if Chinese could do it, why can't we do it? Why can't we lift our country and bring about real change? Why can't we reform the country? We must unite together against the political animal, the political insect that has been in power since 1940. And we must bring about change because change is what is needed. Year by year, the world is becoming more and more dangerous place. More and more wars is happening. The trend in the world seems to be more towards hostility against each other. And is India truly prepared to take on the world? It's not. You and I know it's not. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to improve our own lives. That is time for us common people to take back power to our own hands and to make Bharat not the second fiddle place in the world now, taking a begging cup and going all around asking for foreign investment. But we make it into the Sone Ki Chidiya, the golden bird that it once was, just 400 years ago. If we look back at our Vijayanagar Empire, we look back at the Gupta Empire, we look at the Maurya Empire, we look at the Maratha Empire. If our ancestors could do it, why can't we do it? So let us together make this country into a true and powerful country, a strong country, a rich country, a fair country. Let us take back this power back into our own hands.